So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to talk a little bit about our newest Warframe that was introduced with new war, Caliban, and talk a little bit about the build that I've been using on him. Now this is a Warframe that I've been very much looking forward to because I'm a massive fan of like summoners and minion masters and all that kind of stuff. I basically play them in every game where they're available. Now the build is very expensive, it is 4 forma and one of them is an Umbra forma, so I really went all out to try and make him as good as I could. The most important thing about Caliban is that you get yourself at least 200% power strength, because that way you can actually strip all of the enemy armor with his ultimate ability. But it's also important to get yourself a lot of energy to play around with, which is why this time around I actually went with Pride Flow instead of trying to stack energy efficiency. And then it's just a question of duration versus range. If you want to use the sentience a lot more, or basically have them up at all times, which is what I wanted, you want to go for more duration, which is why I have Narrow-Minded and Constitution, and then I have Stretch and Augur Reach to bump up the range a little bit and to balance out Narrow-Minded. If, however, you're not as interested in having the 3 sentience up at all times, you can easily sacrifice some of that duration and put more into range. So with this build in particular, with Razor Gyre, we have somewhat okay drain per second, though that of course goes up if you charge it up. The radius is good, the damage is actually somewhat decent, and the heal rate is okay too. Then with Sentient Wrath, we have awesome range with a ton of targets that we can hit. We have good damage, the duration is solid as well, and the damage vulnerability is at 71%. Then there is Lethal Progeny. Those are the 3 Conquelists that you can summon. They last for 45 seconds, which generally gives you enough energy to summon them again once they run out. And they actually do solid damage, they are very tanky, and they regenerate a ton of shields per second for you. And finally we have Fusion Strike, which has really good range, solid damage. The radius is okay, it could be better, but on this build we are sacrificing a little bit of range for duration, and we're stripping away 100% of the enemy armor. Which means this build is extremely effective against pretty much everything, because even enemies in heavy armor will lose it all if you hit them with Fusion Strike. Then all that's left to do is throw them up into the air with Sentient Wrath, and you can either Beyblade them to death with Razor Gyre, or you can be more sensible and actually use weapons, because Razor Gyre, even though it does solid damage, is not amazing. Or you can actually let your Conquest pet smack them about, because if you strip away the enemy armor, they're actually gonna do a ton of damage. If they actually decide to attack them, that is. Because the Conquelists, just like any other AI companion outside of the Celestial Twin that you get with Wukong, are very, very dumb. And that is a shame, because they're actually fairly strong. It's kind of the standard level of stupid that I sort of expect from AI companions, so it wasn't that big of a surprise. Like, you know, trying to Beyblade one of the laser scanners in the Kuva Fortress to death, which they can't because the scanners are indestructible. They get stuck on terrain even though they can fly. And sometimes they forget that they can sprint, so they will just ominously hover towards the enemies instead. Very, very slowly. But they could definitely be worse. At least they do good damage, so if you get them into a nice open terrain, they will actually do stuff. They're particularly good when it comes to defending things, so if you're playing survival and you hunker down in a room, or you're doing defense, mobile defense, or even disruption, they're actually pretty good there. Though I would still much rather have either Battalists or Vonvelists instead. Now Caliban is still a fairly new Warframe, and he's only received 1 round of changes or buffs so far, and he's already really good. He has good craft control, good armor stripping, and the damage isn't too shabby either. The downsides here are that the Conquelists can sometimes be a bit daft, and Razor Gyre doesn't do a ton of damage, which is not necessarily a big problem because you can replace it with another ability via Helminth. So I would definitely recommend you give him a shot, though bear in mind that the grind for him is pretty rough, because you're gonna have to farm a lot of armor bounties to get all the things you need to get. And that is pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.